And we found that just 2% of inspectors across the UK are BME. And when it comes to the most senior ranks, of the 266 top cops in the UK, only 8 are BME. Under freedom of information, we've also discovered there are major failings when it comes to recruiting for highly prized specialist posts. 47 of the 53 forces responded, and out of 2,755 firearms officers, only 50 are BME. I'm at Kent Police Headquarters and I'm just about to meet Britain's first and only black Chief Constable. Now, he's been tipped as a future Met Commissioner, and with so few potential Chief Constables coming through the ranks, if anybody from the BME community is going to make that position within the next 10 or 15 years, then it's him. Speaking before Ian Blair's resignation, the man tipped to one day fill his shoes says even high flyers can be held back.
There have been a number of examples where people have tried to block my promotion or prevent me putting myself forward for promotion, and I haven't accepted that. And sometimes I haven't even known I've been a victim of racism. It's been other senior officers who've told me that more junior officers have been attempting to block my promotion.
Mike Fuller has 3 undergraduate degrees, 2 postgraduate degrees, and was recently called to the bar. He is overqualified for his current role, but then he feels he has to be.
Well, I don't think you'd find many Chief Constables actually qualified at the bar, but I'm somebody who's very committed to developing myself professionally, and I have been throughout my service. I've also felt the need to do that in order to get promotion.
Because you were black?
Because I was black, but also because I was ambitious.
But especially because you were black?
Well, I mean, because I was black, but also being ambitious and not giving people any excuse not to select me.
Mike Fuller insists the vast majority of officers he has worked with are not racist. But while progress has been made since he joined in the 70s, he believes that barriers remain.
The BME officers often have to work twice as hard to be recognised and really to compete with their peers, and that is a big concern.
And even still today, this is a relevant concern for you?
Yes, it is a relevant concern. The BME officers have to work twice as hard to compete with their white peers, and they don't feel that there's a level playing field.
In the Met, where Mike Fuller used to work, its 6 most senior BME cops have taken the force to employment tribunal over race. But is this because the Met is still institutionally racist, as McPherson found, or are there other reasons? Mark Daly, BBC Panorama. How would Mr Gafoor react to the suggestions that have been in the media that he was taken off the Olympics not because of his colour or his faith, but because he wasn't up to the job?
There has been no evidence provided by anybody to suggest that. On the contrary, the evidence shows the exact opposite.
Well, I'd like a longer answer than that, please. Is he really a victim of racism? Well, we couldn't ask him.
No interviews. No.
And he's now been removed from his post pending an internal investigation into his going public. But we did ask Ali Desai, the second most senior black officer in the Met. You are 2 of the most senior officers in the country. People would say, well, you know, you've done all right.
Well, let's just disentangle the 2 cases between myself and Tariq Gafoor. Let's take Tariq Gafoor case. Let's turn that argument on its head. 34 years of unblemished service, and not once has he ever said, I've been discriminated against. When he gets up and says, I am subject of race discrimination, I think all the credentials help people to stand up and say, that's an extraordinary allegation to make, and therefore there must be some substance to it.
Since this interview, Ali Desai has also been suspended over allegations of misconduct, which he denies. It's not the first time he's faced such charges. In 2003, a 2-year-long investigation into Desai, codenamed Helios, dramatically failed at the Old Bailey. His supporters claim this latest inquiry, and the decision to suspend him, proves black officers are treated differently. They point to the fact that when Ian Blair was under investigation over the awarding of a £3 million contract to a friend, he wasn't suspended.
This is a hostile environment for a person of colour to join. That's a reality.
Whether the Met has unfairly targeted these senior officers is yet to be established, but what we do know is that there is a steady stream of grassroots BME staff taking the force to tribunal. Panorama has discovered the Met has paid more than £1 million in out-of-court settlements to at least 88 BME officers and staff in the past 5 years. You've paid out £1.2 million in compensation to people who have complained about race. Now, in the past 5 years, now that seems an awful lot of public money. Doesn't that signify a problem?
You know, in terms of employment tribunals, we have a very low rate of employment tribunals in London against the Met. We've only had 5 in the last 5 years where an element of that employment tribunal was race proven against us, and that in fact that in an organisation with some 55,000 people is extremely impressive. We're really proud of that. The Met has come a huge distance in the last 10 years.
The Met is in a uniquely difficult position. It polices by far the most diverse part of the UK. It spent £194 million on diversity-related projects last year. And these days, around a third of its community support officers are BME, along with a quarter of its annual recruitment of full officers. But across the UK, there is still a major problem at senior level.
There is a real problem of officers in senior ranks coming through, and it begs the question as to where are the sort of black and Asian chief constables of the future. I think it really is a sorry state at the moment, and something that the service needs to address immediately.
A phrase that we hear time and time again from BME officers is that they need to work twice as hard to be recognised at the same level as their white colleagues. Is that something you recognise?
Well, I do recognise it as being said, and I've heard my black and minority ethnic colleagues say the same thing. I've also heard a lot of women say the same thing. And I think we acknowledge that there's an essence of truth to that, because actually culturally we sometimes find that there is this baggage in the organisation that looks at people who are different and actually looks at the way in which they work in a different way. And sometimes they find it hard to make their mark. They do feel as though they're impeded because of their colour, and I've said this in this interview earlier. And I think that's something that we are addressing.
When I was training to be a policeman, I saw how difficult it could be for BME officers. This man in my class was ostracised and never made it through. He had to retake the course. Even the tutor seemed glad to see the back of him.
Some news. Come on then. But Covers not coming back. I've been told that not to try and look too happy because somebody in the class might be acquiescing.
He's actually not coming back, as in he's leaving the police service altogether.
Back course.
He's getting back course.
Back course 5 weeks.
Today's more diverse intake suggests this should be a thing of the past. Happily, we know my classmate is still a serving police constable today. But BME officers have been telling us that once in the force, they are victimised in a different way. So under freedom of information, we asked every force in the country about their internal investigations. And now Panorama can reveal that across the UK, if you are black or minority ethnic, you are much more likely to be investigated by your own force than if you're white. In some forces, Strathclyde Police for example, you are 5 times more likely to be investigated if you're black than if you're white. In many others, it's between 2 and 3 times.